All right, hello and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be talking about how to get onto the self-love path. So what does it actually look like and what does it actually mean to live this path? And how do we actually get started in a genuine way so that this doesn't become just another self-improvement thing that we're doing in order to say, right, if I love myself enough or if I do enough of this self-love work, then I'm going to fix myself and then I'll be able to be different and then I'll be able to become my ideal self that I want to become. And kind of using the self-love path almost as like a backdoor way of self-improvement, of just kind of still operating from that mindset that there's something wrong with me, I'm broken, how I am right now is not okay, and if I don't change, if I don't fix myself, if I don't become this kind of idealized version of myself, or if I'm not able to get rid of the things that I think are wrong with me right now, that I'll never be happy, I'll never be loved, I'll never be able to have the life that I want. And so, as we were talking about last week, so if you didn't watch last week's video, I highly recommend that you go back and just watch either the last live that's on my feed or the last video that's on my YouTube, where I talked about the main reason most of us struggle to get on the self-love path, right? So like the main stumbling block that most of us are working with, which is essentially the childhood wounding trauma that says, if I am in pain, if life isn't going how I want it to go, if I'm not feeling how I want to feel, that this is because there is something fundamentally wrong with me that I need to fix, right? That's the childhood coping mechanism that most of us are working with, that we don't even realize we're working with. Because again, it feels in our adult reality very logical and reasonable and like the most obvious answer, that when we are in pain, when something is happening in our lives that we're not happy with, that we are doing something to cause it, that it's going to feel to us like those things about ourselves that we think we need to fix before we're going to be able to be happy are going to seem so just like, okay, but Allie, you don't understand. If I don't do this, if I don't fix this about myself, if I don't change this about myself, I am going to keep struggling. I am going to keep suffering. I am never going to be able to be okay. And you're going to have all of these reasons and all of this evidence to support that idea. And again, I really want you to be able to have compassion for yourself in that, because that's how all of us feel, okay? Literally, pretty much everyone out there has their thing or their one or two things or their couple of things about themselves that they are deeply convinced is the reason why people don't like them, why they are not happy, why they are in pain, why they are suffering. And again, a lot of us, when we start doing this work, aren't even going to, or we are going to become aware that we're not even registering that we're in pain and then looking at this part of ourselves and saying, this is the thing that's the cause and I have to fix it in order to feel better. We're not thinking that thought. We're not thinking those thoughts. That's not how the process works. We're not like, oh, I'm in pain, I felt rejected, I feel unsafe, I feel like I'm not going to be okay, and then that means that I have to fix this thing about myself, and if I fix this thing about myself, I'll be safe and I'll be okay. We're not thinking that. We're not seeing that for the most part. But that's really what it is at the end of the day. Okay? When we are in that state of self-hate, when we are in shame, when we are in blame, when we are in self-guilt, the reason we are doing that, generally speaking, is because we're hurting in some way, we're in pain on some level, we feel unsafe, We feel like our needs are not going to get met. And we're trying to find our power within that. We're trying to find and figure out, what am I doing wrong that's causing me this pain, that's making me unsafe, so that you can fix it about yourself, so that you can change it, in the hopes that that will lead to a situation where you have perfect security and you have perfect provision and you have perfect safety. That thing we all wanted as a child. That is what we wanted from a secure connection in our childhoods that most of us never got, right? We wanted to be fully loved and accepted by our caregivers so that we could feel like our needs were going to be met, and we could feel that we could then express ourselves and grow and expand in natural, normal ways and be nourished and be supported in that. And that's what we're looking for. Okay? So when we're in shame, blame, and guilt, that is really the thing that we're searching for. We're searching for, okay, where did my secure connection just go away? And therefore, where did my safety, provision, and capacity to be myself just get taken away? And that's why we all have these parts of ourselves that we hate, these parts of ourselves that we continually reject over and over and over again. And so that's why even like in our adult reality, and we're like, I need to get a job. I need to find my purpose. I need to make more money. I need to be more independent. I need to, all of these things. You can say, well, that doesn't make any sense. No child would think that. Okay, I understand. But understanding that it's still the root cause of, if I get a job, then I'm going to be perfectly provided for and safe and get all my needs met. That's really what we're looking for. Security. Safety. I want to feel like I'm going to get my needs met. When we're saying, I need to fix my body, I need to lose weight, I need to gain weight, I need to get a bigger butt, whatever it is, right? The bottom line of that is, because if I do that, I will be loved, I will be accepted, and therefore, I will be provided for and I will be safe. That's what love and acceptance register to us as, because again, in our childhoods, in our earliest, most primitive time as our self in this life, when we were being programmed for how life worked, before we had a frontal lobe, right? Before we had logic, reason, understanding, before we could see a bigger picture, what was being programmed into our system was love equals safety. Because connection to our caregivers equaled safety, equaled getting all of our needs met in our minds and in our experience as children. You know, in real reality, this may not have been true. Our caregivers could have loved us perfectly and still not had the capacity to provide for us, still not had the capacity to give us the things that we wanted and that we needed. And if we weren't able to have that communicated to us in a way that we could understand as children, we were still going to see any amount of our needs not being met as being something I did wrong, something I did to cause this. Because that's how the child self perceives the world. And then we start to evolve into our adulthoods, and we don't actually get rid of that thinking. Most of us don't ever progress beyond that if I am loved, I will be safe. If I am rejected, I am not going to be okay. Most of us don't progress past that. We just evolve it into a new adult form that looks very adult, right? I got to change my body. I got to find my purpose. I got to have the right job. I got to have the right career. I got to fix all these things about my personality. Anything we perceive that is causing people to not like us, or that is leading to us being insecure in some way, that's going to be the stuff that we hate about ourselves. And again, right, many of us developed a coping mechanism of, right, I'm going to change my body, or I'm going to change whatever it is, in the hopes that if I perfect this thing about myself that I think I have control over. Yes? Because I may not have control over how my caregivers see me, or I feel like I don't have control over my job or over any of these other things. But then there's this deep down sense of like, but I can control my body, I can control my personality. And so these are the things that I'm going to hyper fixate on when I am feeling unsafe, when I am feeling unloved, when I am feeling rejected. I get triggered automatically. It's my body, it's my body, it's my body. It's my job, it's my job, it's my job. It's my personality, it's my personality, it's my personality. And we loop and loop and loop and loop and loop in the shame and the blame and the guilt. Truly believing that if I could figure this thing out, if I could just heal this thing, all my pain would go away. I would be loved perfectly. And then I will be safe. So that's really what's going on. Okay? So that's the root of all of our self-hate and our self-shame, is we think this is the part of me that is the reason I don't have a secure connection. This is the part of my personality, this is the part of my whatever, that is the reason I don't have a secure connection, or the reason that I don't have security. And so if I fix this thing about myself, I will have perfect security. And this is why the manifestation and the positive thinking and the new age woo-woo stuff is so attractive, right? This idea that if I just get all my thoughts perfectly aligned, the universe is going to respond to me with only good things. This idea that if I do enough spiritual practice, I can transcend the human experience and get out of the wheel of karma and perform perfectly to this, spiritual path, and then eventually I won't be in pain anymore. This idea that if I just think properly, I can stop suffering, I can stop having pain because everything's just in my head and everything is happening between my ears. That if I can be only positive vibes, I'm going to manifest only positive things. Like all of these beliefs, again, they feel so real and so attractive because it's speaking directly to that childhood view of reality. That if I just make myself likable and lovable to the universe, which is really just Sky Daddy, then I'm going to be blessed with a perfect life and perfect security. And it's not about how the world actually works. It's not about systems. It's not about seeing that things are happening that have nothing to do with us, that we can be born into chronically ill bodies that we didn't choose, that we can be in situations where, again, we don't choose our programming and we don't choose our history and we don't choose the socioeconomic status we were born into and we don't choose the culture we were born into, and all of these things that have a massive impact on our life experience. We're not seeing any of that, and we don't really want to necessarily see that because we don't have control over that, right? But when some spiritual person comes to you and says, okay, but if you fully and completely control your thoughts, you can have the perfect life, that we're like, yeah, that makes sense. That is perfect. If someone says, okay, systems, this is how systems work. There are lots of things you can't control. There are lots of things happening in your life that aren't because of you. Let's look at the bigger picture. We're all like, yeah, no, let's not. I think I really just need to find my career. I think I really just need to lose weight. I think it's just, I need to fix this thing. And again, right, our minds are going to have all kinds of evidence that say, but look, this is the reason I was rejected. People really don't like this about my personality. People really don't like this about me. If I had a job, it would be better. It would be different. I would be more respected. I would make more money. I would da-da-da-da-da. Right? So it's going to feel very real to us. It's going to feel like, no, if I improve this thing, if I fix this part of myself, if I get rid of this thing, I really will have it all. It's going to feel that way. But if we can start to, again, just step back, peel back these layers, start on this self-love path, which is what I'm going to talk about now, we are going to be able to come more into reality and where we actually have control and where we actually can improve our lives in a way that's actually productive and in alignment with reality, instead of being on these loops of self-improvement that never go anywhere. Because I guarantee you, if all of us were to take a step back right now and just think about how long we've been trying to fix ourselves, right? This was the big revelation that actually led me onto this path. Was sitting there and realizing I had been working on trying to find the perfect career, trying to change my personality, literally trying to become this laid back, no worries, no cares, no trauma, can party and be just like normal, when my real personality is not like that at all. Trying to fix my body so that I could just be thin and whatever the world was telling me I needed to be at the time. I had been working on that for my whole life. Like, basically, I realized sitting there at 24 years old, I think it was something like this, that I had been trying to change myself, trying to fix myself, trying to become this other person for decades. And then I thought about my grandmother, who was in her late 60s at the time, talking to me about going on a diet. Like, she was almost 70 and she was still dieting. And I just thought, like, holy shit, this never ends. This never goes anywhere. Right? If someone, and I kind of thought about it, right? Like, I had like dedicated every part of myself to fixing myself. Quite literally. Like, I had been so dedicated to the self-improvement path. I don't think that there was any other person out there as steadfast, I am going to fix myself, as me, who hated themselves as much as me. Like, I'm sure that there are other people out there who hate themselves as much as I hated myself, and that's why I make these videos, and that's why I do the work that I do, because it's awful. But I'm going to say that I was up there in the high percentage of, or in the, I don't know what I'm trying to say there. I was in the upper echelons of self-hate, of levels of self-hate. And, right, it just kind of smacked me in the face of just like, this doesn't end. If I haven't been able to do it by now, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be able to do it. I've tried everything. Like, that was kind of the bottom line. It was like, I am either going to spend the rest of my life being completely miserable being myself because I can't accept anything about myself, or I'm going to have to learn how to like who I am. I'm going to have to learn how to make friends with this body. I'm going to have to get on my own side at some point. And, you know, there's kind of a very popular message in the self-help, spirituality, personal growth world of like, no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to fix you. No one's coming to rescue you. You're going to have to do this for yourself. And I don't love that. I don't love that message because it just feels very, again, this hyper individualism and this hyper, you have to do everything on your own and you have to love yourself by yourself, and if no one ever loves you, kind of fuck that, whatever. Okay, I get it, and I think a lot of us feel that way. A lot of us really feel deeply abandoned by the world and by everyone in our lives, and we kind of are either in that state of desperately wanting somebody to see us and love us, or just saying like, fuck it, I'm gonna have to just do this all by myself and never want external love and never want to be seen by anyone ever again, and I have to learn to just love myself. because no one's coming to save me. And I don't think that either of those perspectives are actually true in reality, right? Like, I'm here making these videos because I don't ever want anyone to feel as alone as I did. I made the mystery school because I never want anyone to feel as alone as I did. I do one-on-one coaching because I never want anyone to feel like they have to do this all by themselves if they're not capable of that right now. And I do believe that we are worthy of connection and we are worthy of community, and that these things are deeply nourishing for us. So I don't want to make it sound like the self-love path is a no one's coming for you. You have to do this all by yourself. And that self-love path is about becoming as independent as possible, because it's not true. The self-love path actually makes us better at relationships. It makes us less codependent. It makes us more able to be interdependent and to get, our needs met in different ways and all of these things. But that's for another video. For now, what I want to say is that the real truth is, if you can't learn to love and accept yourself, if you can't learn to start to move towards loving yourself for who and what you are right here, right now, it's not going to matter how much other people love you. Now, does that mean, again, we can't receive love until we love ourselves fully? No, of course not. Other people's love matters, and it will be impactful, and it can be incredibly healing to be loved by somebody else. And again, we are human beings that have evolved forever in community. So we don't want to pretend that that's not a part of what makes us feel fulfilled and what makes us feel safe. However, we also want to acknowledge that no one else's love is ever going to be enough to make you feel fully safe, to make you feel fully secure, or to make you feel like you finally have permission to love yourself. That is permission only you can give yourself. That is permission only you can give yourself. No one outside of you has the power to give you permission to love yourself. And I've seen this over and over and over again. People who are in a state where they are not ready to learn to love themselves, whether or not they are being loved by somebody outside of themselves, it does not matter how much you love them. It does not matter how many other people around them are affirming and loving and supportive and there for them. They can't feel it and they can't receive it to the degree that it is there. And they always feel chronically unsafe and like they're not going to be okay. Because the reality is that human love, external love, is always going to be imperfect. It's never going to be secure. It's never going to be something we can always rely on. And so if we don't have an internal source, if we don't have the ability to love ourselves and to be on our own side and to support ourselves in the times when love from the outside is not available or is imperfect or is crumbling or is falling away or is shifting in some way, or when someone else is just living their own life, right? And it's not about us right now, and they just can't be there for us. They can't meet our needs. They can't see us because they're going through their life, that we can still be okay. And the second thing is, again, it is incredibly difficult to figure out what we want, what we need, and what's going to make us feel good in our lives if we're not working from a place of wanting to support ourselves. If we're working from a place of trying to fix ourselves, we're missing the point. Okay? So this is the real crux of the self-love path. It's realizing that what we really want when we are hating ourselves, when we are trying to fix ourselves, when we are trying to get rid of these parts of ourselves or improve these things or find our purpose or whatever it is, what we really want is security, safety, and self-expression. That's what's really going on. We want security, we want safety, we want love, and we want self-expression. These are the things that fulfill us as human beings. And these are the things that rock us when we don't have access to them. Survival, love, and expression. That's what it boils down to. That's what makes us feel good as a human. I'm going to survive, I'm going to be loved and connected, and I'm going to get to express myself. Whatever that looks like for the rest of my time on this planet. I'm going to get to explore the things that I'm interested in. I'm going to get to expand into who I really am. That's what we want. So when we start to be able to get onto that, right? When we start to get onto, okay, when I am hating myself, when I am shaming myself, when I am blaming myself, where do I feel like these things are being taken away from me? And where do I feel like if I fixed these things, that's what I would get? So like in all of my one-on-one coaching sessions, when we're working with shame, blame, and guilt, we always work with, okay, what is it that you're actually feeling and what is it that you're actually wanting? So we'll get into that in a second. But this is the thing that I really want you to start to open up to the idea of. When you are shaming and blaming and guilting yourself. So this is the first step of how we get onto the self-love path. When we start to notice we are shaming and blaming and guilting ourselves, we start to consider, where am I feeling unsafe? Where am I feeling like I'm being rejected or I'm going to be rejected? Where am I feeling like I cannot express who and what I really am? Where is my safety being taken away? Where do I feel like connection is being taken away? And where do I feel like self-expression is being taken away? Just start to consider that. What if that is what is at the root of why you think you need to fix, change, heal, improve yourself right now? I don't feel safe. I don't feel loved. I don't feel expressed. Because that, again, kind of rounding out my story, when I first realized that, I was like, whoa, okay. I am never going to fix myself. I am either going to spend the rest of my life trying and failing, because the best predictor of future results is past. Right? And I just thought, right, if I was going to change myself, if I was going to fix myself, I would have achieved it by now. Because I've been doing this for decades. So like I said, I had that revelation of like, I'm either going to have to learn how to like who I actually am, or I'm going to spend the rest of my life fighting with myself. Those are my two options. And there was just a moment where I was like, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life fighting with myself. It's too hard. It's too painful. It's not leading me where I want to go. It's not helping me feel better. My life doesn't feel like my life. Right? That was the big like, who am I living for? What am I living for? Why am I making all of these choices that I'm making? Why am I trying to fix all of these things I'm trying to fix? What do I think I'm going to get if I get there? What am I going to lose? Or what do I feel like I'm going to lose if I stop trying? Okay? So that is where most of us get stopped on the self-love path. Because when we stop trying to fix ourselves, a whole bunch of fear is going to come up. That childhood self that says, nope, this is how we're going to get safe. If you don't fix yourself, you are never going to get safety, you are never going to get love, and you are never going to be able to express yourself. It's going to come up, and it's going to tell you all the scariest stories that have been driving you for your whole life. That's what's going to happen. This is why most of us struggle to get onto the self-love path. Because there's going to be such a strong, instinctual, guttural reaction to, if I stop trying to fix myself, I will never be happy. I will never be safe. If I don't fix who I am, my life is going to be shit forever. And again, we may not even say, well, because people won't like me. Even though deep down, that's a big part of what it is for most of us. But we're going to say, right, like, I'm going to be in this shitty body forever, and I hate this shitty body, and I hate how it looks, and I hate how it feels. And if I don't fix it, I won't feel better. Or if I don't find a career, I'm never going to feel good enough. I'm never going to make enough money. I'm never going to live the life I want to live. If I don't find the right partner, I'm never going to feel how I want to feel. I'm never going to have the love that I want. I'm never going to be able to have kids. Right? And all of this is going to come up. And it's going to feel so real and so true that it's going to feel like, no, if I love myself, that's impossible. If I love myself for who I am right now, I'm going to stay being miserable. And that's where most of us stop. Right? Or okay, but if I don't change myself, if I don't fix myself, like, I am objectively bad. I am objectively lazy. I am objectively selfish. I am objectively not social, not good enough. And I know this because example. Okay? So I want you to know that if that is the experience you're having, that is normal. That's totally normal. That's how all of us feel. If I stop trying to fix myself, I'm going to be miserable for the rest of my life. And here are the reasons why. That's the deep fear that comes up to keep us on the self-improvement path. So if that is what you experience every time you try to love yourself, when you try to have compassion for yourself, there's nothing wrong with you. You're normal. That's how this works. And this is why the self-love path requires deep levels of bravery. This is why I call this a deeply spiritual path. Because if it were easy, and if all of us could just do it, I wouldn't be here, right? I wouldn't need to make these videos. I wouldn't need to do coaching. I wouldn't need to make the mystery school, because it would just be an easy thing that we could just all do. I could make one video and be like, hey, just be nice to yourself. And then everyone would be like, yeah, good. And then we'd all be on our way, right? If it were that simple, if it were that easy, we wouldn't need to be doing this. But it isn't. And this is why I say it's a deeply spiritual path. Because it requires that we go into our programming and that we question our foundational beliefs about ourselves and about the world. And that we fundamentally shift the way that we operate. And that is nothing but a spiritual transformation. This is the hero's journey. Whatever you want to call it. This is the spiritual path of learning how to return to your humanity. So what I want you to do, that first step, is to look at how has the self-improvement path worked for you. To just allow yourself to simply take a step back and assess that. How's it worked? How long have you been on that path? And has it ever given you the results that you've wanted? Has it ever actually led you to this life that feels good for you, that you have been wanting? And if the answer is yes, continue on. You don't need to listen to this. If it's working for you and self-improvement is working for you and you're loving it, go for it. I'm not here to tell you you're doing something wrong if it's feeling good for you. Right? If that's the path you want to be on and it feels fulfilling and good for you, go for it. But if not, I want you to acknowledge that. And then the second thing I want you to acknowledge is that that is not your fault. Okay? That's the big turning point. It is not your fault that you feel like you need to improve yourself, that you've been running around like a chicken with your head cut off trying to improve yourself your whole life. It is not your fault that you hate yourself. It is not your fault that you hate these parts of yourself. It is not your fault that you have self-sabotage and coping and numbing and stimulating things that you do. Your emotions are not your fault. Your body is not your fault. You have been doing the best you could with what you had for your entire life. That is the first step, is that we start, or the second step, right? So the first step is, how is this working for me? Is this working? And then the second step is noticing all that fear come up and saying, what if I started to have compassion for myself within these things versus self-hate and self-blame? So these areas where you are trying to improve yourself, where you are trying to fix yourself, all these things you think are wrong with you, can you start to look for, okay, well, how am I trying to help myself with these things? Where did I learn that these things are not okay? And what happened to me that made me believe these things are not okay about me? Was I bullied? Was I abandoned? Was I told I'm not good enough? Was I constantly rejected? Did I go through incredibly painful experiences that I am trying to avoid happening again in the future by trying to fix myself? Are there things in my current reality that I really don't like, that don't feel good for me, that I am using my coping, numbing, self-sabotage behaviors in order to escape? All of these things that I think I need to become. Why? What do I truly believe I'm going to get if I were to become these things? And how can you have compassion for yourself for the pain that you've been through that has caused you to feel like you need to fix yourself all the time? Can we flip the script from there is something fundamentally wrong with me, and all the people who have been mean to me, and all the people who have rejected me, and all of these horrible, terrible messages I've gotten about myself my whole life, and all the places where I wasn't supported and where I was told that I was deficient, but I wasn't helped, I wasn't actually supported. I wasn't given tools to make things better. I was just expected to change or expected to be different. Or I was in pain, and rather than being loved and supported, I was blamed and shamed and guilted. We start to look at this and we start to say, okay, that was really painful. That hurt me. That wasn't something wrong that I did. That was me being in pain. And now I'm trying to fix myself in order to avoid that pain happening again. That is where we want to get. How is this working for me? It's not my fault. So what was the painful experience that led to me believing I had to fix myself? I have to change myself. Who I am is not okay. I can't express the way that I want to express. I can't go on the path I need to go on to figure out who and what I actually am, because I have to become this specific thing. Right? So when we're struggling to make ourselves do the career we really think we have to do, well, maybe that's not the career for you, but you truly believe you're never going to be loved and you're never going to be accepted unless you do that thing. Why do you believe you need to change your personality? What painful thing has happened to you that made you believe that? Because you didn't come up with these things all by yourself for no reason. Right? You're not hating these parts of yourself because you just decided to one day. They are associated with pain on some level. They are associated with not being safe, not being connected, and not being able to express yourself. So how can you start to look at that and have compassion for the you that went through that? That's the paradigm shift. I'm not trying to fix, change, and improve myself because I'm actually shitty. It's because I went through some painful experiences that taught me this is the reason this painful experience is happening to me. So this is the thing I need to change about myself to avoid that painful experience happening again. And then we need to grieve that. We need to get upset with our caregivers. We need to get upset with the people that bullied us. We need to get upset with the world for how it's structured and how it's not fair and how it isn't set up so that all of us can have what we need if we just put in a good hard days of work. We need to start to see the bigger picture of how we have been harmed. And we need to have that compassionate, that was not your fault. You did not deserve that. You didn't create that. That was not okay. Catharsis. And this is why many of us have to go through periods of time where we get angry at our caregivers, even if our adult self can see that they did the best they could and they tried and it wasn't on purpose and all of these things. It doesn't erase what your childhood self experienced and the pain that you went through. Even though we can have compassion that, kids are mean and they were just kids, and it doesn't erase the adverse experience of being bullied or being rejected and not being safe and not being able to express yourself. We have to go through that. Now, does that mean we get stuck there forever? No. Okay, so that's going to be the other big fear that comes up. If I let myself get angry, if I let myself blame other people, well, then I'm not taking responsibility for myself, and then I'm just a victim for the rest of my life. No. We have to start with this compassion. We start with compassion. We start with it's not my fault. We start with getting upset with the people that did this to us, That's where we start. That's where we start. That's not where we end. Okay? We have to realize that this self-love path is a process. Okay. And we will get there one day. We will get to the place one day where we're ready to say, okay, those are the things that happened to me. They were awful. I didn't choose them. They weren't my fault. And now, in my adult reality, where do I have the power to make my own life better? We will get there. I promise. But that's not where we start. That's not how we start the process. We don't start at adult perspective. We start at healing what we've been through. And that requires validation. It wasn't my fault. I didn't deserve that. I didn't ask for that. That was deeply painful. And my experience of that was not good. Right? So learning how to stop centering the experience of the other people, because that's, again, a childhood coping mechanism. When we center the experience of other people in a way that's blocking us from processing what we went through, that's spiritual bypassing. That's emotional bypassing. Because yes, now as adults, you are true, but now focus on adventure. One day, I would love that. We have to go through that period of allowing ourselves to say, okay, but as a child, it wasn't my fault. And centering the experience of other people is another coping mechanism. Centering the experience of other people is, again, another childhood thing of, if I center the experience of other people enough, I can understand them enough, then I can fix myself enough to be what they want me to be, and then they will love me, and then I will be safe. That's why we're doing that. We're trying to understand other people, and we're trying to empathize with other people, and we're trying to get into their head, not because we're spiritual and empathic and all of these things, but because, again, at the end of the day, we really believe if we can do that enough, we'll figure out what they want, and then we can become what they want us to become. So then they will love us, and then we will be safe. Right? So now we just need to come back to our own perspective, our own feelings, our own experience. What did I need that I didn't get? What did I get that I didn't need? And how can I start to be on my own side with all of that? That's how we start the self-love path. We realize that the self-improvement thing has never worked. That it's not working. It's not getting us where we want to go. It's not healing us the way we want to be healed. And that we can spend the rest of our lives finding something to hate and shame and blame and reject about ourselves. Because there's always going to be a reason we're unsafe. There's always going to be a reason we're not connected to everybody and that people reject us. And there's always going to be a reason we can't express ourselves. And if we're not able to identify that real pain and how we need to work with that in real reality, but we're stuck in fix my body, find my career, change my personality, we're never going to be able to deal with the actual pain that we're in. And that, again, is the whole point of the self-love path. That's why we do this. So that we can move past the shame, blame, and the guilt, the childhood coping mechanism of if I fix and change all these things about myself, life is going to be perfect. So that we can start to identify where we're actually hurting. What's actually hurting? What is the cause of that pain? And how can I deal with it in an adult way? That's what this is. It's maturation. It's going from the childhood perspective that if I perfect myself, everything will be perfect. To no, I need to become an actual adult problem solver who can identify my actual feelings, the cause of those feelings, and where I have power to address and change those feelings. So when we're stuck in shame, blame, and guilt, we're disconnected from real reality. We're in pain, we don't know why. We don't really know why. We don't know what we really want, and we don't know what we really need. And we first have to go through that period of compassion and catharsis for what happened, and then we start to step into the adult perspective. You see? Then we can start to assess, where do I not feel safe? Where am I feeling like love is going away? Where am I feeling like I can't express myself? And what's happening in real reality, that's the reason for that. Because it's not because your personality is wrong. It's not because you don't have the ideal body. It's not because you don't have the ideal career. I guarantee you. These things can change things. You might get to a point where you're able to change these things about your life in a way that feel better for you. But when you're doing it from a place of self-love, it's no longer about fixing yourself to try to make your life perfect. It's about changing your entire motivation from if I fix myself, my life will be perfect, to how do I support the real me that exists right now? It's a completely different way of dealing with pain. It's the adult way of dealing with pain. What do I need to feel supported? What in real reality is happening? And what do I need to support myself through it? To ask for support? What's really going on? What am I actually feeling? These are all the deeper things we get into, right? That's what we're doing in coaching. That's what we're doing in the mystery school, these videos. But I wanted to give you this introduction, right? Again, these kind of, how do we start this process? So like I say, it's not, we don't end at just being mad at the world and then not taking responsibility for ourselves and then just being sad. But we have to go through that process because we have to learn to get beyond shame, blame, and guilt so we can get into real reality. What's actually hurting you? What's actually bothering you? What do you actually need and what do you actually want? That's the point of the path. What's actually going to fulfill you? Within the context of the culture you exist in, which is not perfect, which isn't one where if you just do the right things, everything will be perfect. Where if you just think the right thoughts, everything will be perfect. We don't live in that world. And we don't want to be in a fantasy that we live in that world. And that's what the self-improvement path is. It's a fantasy. It's the fantasy that if I fix myself enough, I will be safe, I will be loved, and then I can express myself for who I really am. And it's not true. In adult reality, that is just not how life works. So this path is about getting out of the childhood perspective and into the adult perspective. And it starts with grieving and being upset and having compassion for yourself for the things that you went through that caused you to hate yourself. That's how we get on this path. So when you're hating yourself, this is how we get onto the self-love path. Don't try to just love these parts of yourself, right? As much as that would be great if we could just be like, oh, I woke up today hating my personality, and today I was just like, no, I'm just going to love my personality. We're not going to be able to do that. You can't just put a carpet on top of the dirt. We have to look at the dirt. Why do I hate this part of myself? What was the painful experience that led me to believing that this part of me is not okay? And can I have compassion for the me that went through that? That is how we start to turn this around. You don't try to just love the parts of yourself you hate. You have compassion for the you that went through what you went through, that taught you to hate these parts. Okay? So that is what we want to start with. When you are hating yourself, don't try to convince yourself to love the part. Don't try to just keep improving yourself. What did I go through that made me believe this part of me is bad and I have to hate it? And how can I grieve that? And how can I have compassion for myself for that? And how can I tell myself that wasn't my fault? And who do I need to be upset with so that I'm not directing that anger at myself anymore? That's the beginning. Okay? Okay. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave them down in the description. You can message me. We can do coaching. You can reach out, whatever you want to do. Access the mystery school. And other than that, I hope that this was helpful. I hope that this was illuminating. Because yeah, if it were as simple as just love these parts that you hate and just change your thoughts about them, again, I wouldn't be here. It's deeper than that. We can't just change how we feel. Because the things that we hate, it's a self-protective mechanism. We're trying to protect ourselves from future pain. And we're not going to just convince ourselves out of that. We got to process what we went through. So, what was the painful experience you went through that made you believe you had to hate this part of yourself? And how can you start to have compassion for yourself about that? That is how we get on the path. Okay? Okay. So thank you for being here. You are worthy of this. Take your time. Okay? Okay. See you next week. Goodbye.